The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Pennsylvania High School Football Report podcast. I have returned. I'm Brian Linder, here with Dan Sostek. I don't know where Eric Epler is. You know where Eric Epler is, Dan?
He's probably, Eric Epler's he's always doing something important, right? He has his I think Eric is a secret agent. And when he says he overslept or something like that, he's actually doing some real secret covert stuff for the government. So we'll keep that as the prevailing theory.
And you see this hat I'm wearing today?
I'm assuming it must be The Rock or something.
The Final Balls. But I'm not wearing my Final Ball shirt. I'm wearing my Wheeler train station shuttle ride shirt. What do you know about that?
That's what I know about that.
That's Yellowstone, my man. Yellowstone.
I've not been to Yellowstone, not watched the show.
You know what? You got to give it a little bit. It's actually a decent show.
I'm a Kevin Costner fan, but I like his movies more.
You got to watch. You got to give it a little bit. But it's a good show. It should be. It's more like a B level show. It could be an A plus, but if they with a little bit better writing. But it's a solid show.
I'll just rewatch No Way Out with Kevin Costner from the '90s. I love that movie. But
so I pointed at the Rock hat here. We've made a habit of talking a little bit of professional wrestling here.
I think we is a strong
Dane or Stefan Swerve Strickland, first Black AEW World Champion over the weekend.
How long's AEW been around? About 5-10 years.
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 years now. I think 4 years, maybe 5 years. Tony Khan's the owner, Shad Khan's son. But Swerve Strickland, Stefan Strickland, is a former Donegal football player.
I mean, I feel like a lot of these, they're all either former wrestlers or football players, right? You got, I think, isn't that the guy, the MJF dude, wasn't he a college football player as well?
Or I think like maybe small college for a minute. I know he played in high school. He's out from like Long Island area or something like that.
Yeah, he's one of my people, one of the Jewish peoples.
Swerve Strickland has an interesting story, Dan. He, I guess he moved here when he was about 7, Mountain Joy. His dad was in the Army. He joined the Army Reserves when he was like coming out of high school from Donegal. And really spent the early years, he trained right around New York somewhere and really wrestled professionally in small shows around New York because he was in the Army Reserve, had to stay around there for the first couple of years. He's been in WWE. And they cut him loose, and he ends up in AEW. It's just like you said, it's neat. It's another one of these neat things for our high school football players who are good athletes. That hey, you don't have to just be a football player. There are other options. He's got a good human interest story. We're supposed to talk to him. I figured I'd throw that out there. People might find that pretty interesting.
Yeah.
We've had some good Pennsylvania connections with some big wrestling angles. Again, Dan, I'm not a huge wrestling fan.
Well, you said angles, literally an angle, Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Wordplay.
Yeah. Hey, so look, I'll tell you what else, man. We've been kicking it around, and I got to get with Evan Wheaton because I've been telling him we're going to get a spring football push with budgets. What we call a budget, which is just kind of like an outline of different stories and topics we want to touch on. With PennLive, we are going to bring back our rankings. It's so labor intensive. The one thing, all the other websites that try to do the stuff, I think they really do put an honest effort into it. The one thing about our rankings when we do them, Dan, I think the last one we did last year for the seniors was 40,000 words because it's like 300 kids. And so we're not just making a list. Oh, this guy's 75th. We're telling you height, weight. Here's where you can find his huddle. Here's some stats. Here's why we think he can be a college player. So we're going to bring those back for you. But
Right, it's going to get harder and harder. I feel because it's getting more and more stacked.
Yeah.
The year
And
feels
this spring, we're gonna really kind of roll out some looks at top prospects in the state, and obviously we got the Under Armour Baltimore things coming up in May 19th. So we're probably going to be going out there. And we've seen, obviously some local guys who've been playing really well. Elias Koch, a Harrisburg wide receiver, just played a couple weeks ago on the NFL Network. With he was playing with Cali Power, the 707. We gotta get him on there and talk to him about how he ended up playing, from Harrisburg with a 707 team in California.
I mean, if you get an offer to go play California during your time off when you live in Harrisburg, I feel like that's just if I'm not having to front the plane tickets, yeah, I don't know how that works. I'm sure Elias and his family can illuminate us, but I would never turn down the opportunity to go to California for a couple weeks. So
Um, yeah, I think Stone Saunders, I believe, I think he trains out in California with some top quarterbacks, or has, in the all season. The guy, our Bishop McDevitt quarterback. But Elias is Dan. He's That kid is big. It's funny because like when he was a freshman, I was saying he might have, and now I'm like, man, he's a big receiver. Like he really could. I think he could be a big receiver, and I think he could be a big receiver and be successful. But he still might end up growing one day. I mean, you could see him being 6'4",
yeah.
225, 230.
Yeah, to me, like I just think that distinction matters less and less now. Like it's like you're just a. I think you want to be called a receiver because that's if you get franchise tagged in the NFL, you get more money than if you're called a move tight end or something. I still just think he's a pure receiver because his yards after catch stuff, and apparently, University of Miami does too. Because right, literally seconds before we hopped on here, both Elias and Messiah Mickens, who committed to Penn State, picked up offers from University of Miami and Mario Cristobal down there. So that's another school where it's like be hard to turn it down. But I don't know, maybe the U will be back by the time Elias is a senior. We'll see. The U has been almost back for 20 years, and
He's gonna be like Mike Evans size, or something. He's gonna be big, man.
well, yeah, I mean, that's not a bad player to
No,
be the size of, right? I think Mike Evans has done pretty darn well for himself. Like,
sweet.
um,
A better.
the thing that and Ep, who just to break the fourth wall, just jumped onto our stream. Ep would agree. Um, is that I think the reason we're so confident that he's a wide receiver is because you watch him move and
Yeah.
it's not labored even as he gets bigger. It doesn't feel like the added size and the added muscle. It doesn't feel like it feels like it's naturally come on and he naturally still moves as shifty and he still can make yards after the catch. He's still playing safety. It's not like he's moving the linebacker. So I still view him as a wide receiver, but you're right. He's going to be a big and I mean, we said it all last year. We said we feel like if you just throw the ball up to him, he's coming down with that.
Yeah.
That ball 9
He's
times out of
bullying
10.
guys. Harrisburg was really good at that. Epler taking deep shots. And Sean Lee, he's a heck of a quarterback. But I do think that's the one thing. Yeah, previously when they had speedsters. They did have a guy who was kind of physical and big, and Shaquan Anderson Butts, who was on our All-American. But they had the speedy guys, Henry Kez's, the Ronald Dante Kent's. They would run those straight down the field and just zip it down there to those guys. Yamir had a big arm, Yamir Wilkerson. I do think that's one area where, heck, I think they just kind of scrapped things down to into that game against Manhattan Township and just decided to throw it up to the big guy, and it worked. I think they could do more of that with this kid, especially now. I don't know if you've seen some of the clips, but Elias Koch's looking big and bullying defensive backs.
Well, there's quite a difference between in-game procedure and what you want to do, and in these 7-on-7s and camps and things like that, where it's all about who can beat the guy up for on a 50-yard press or whatever. So again, I think it comes back to scheme. I mean, it comes back to Calvin Everett's. He loves running the football. He loves establishing that line of scrimmage. And even if you notice too, the most important down in high school football is first down.
Yeah.
And if you get those 4 or 5 yards, on the running game, things that drive becomes different. The makeup of that drive becomes different, where you don't need to throw it up to your point guy. Now, when you're against Manhattan Township and you're down a bunch of points, you got to take shots. You've got to go to your guy that can high point the ball. You guy that can beat with speed. I mean, we know Elias can run. We know he can jump through the roof, and he's got good hands. So, I just think it was a product of his lowered stats for last year was just a product of scheme. I just think, and in a grand scheme, if you're looking at it from a college ranks, we've seen. I mean, look at Harrison Jr.'s numbers. At St. Joe's Prep, nothing about those numbers.
The next level's not looking at Max Prep stat pages, right? They're looking at they're
looking at upside, and the kid's got all the upside in the world. And I mean, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. had something like 563 yards his senior year at St. Joe's Prep, which there's probably 150 other players that had better stats than him wide receiver wise, but you just see the upside and the potential, and all the intangibles of him being a wide receiver in a Power 5. They're all there. They're all there.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Another interesting thing out of Harrisburg, couple actually. Messiah Mickens, obviously you brought him up, Danny. He just got a Georgia offer. He's a Penn State commit. And I think he's a solid Penn State commit, but he's getting some pretty good offers. And I think Penn State's coming into a year. And I've told Dan and I've talked about this. I'm not sold on Drew Aller. I get that the wide receivers weren't that great. Maybe weren't getting good separation. I feel like there's been some wild inaccuracy with him throwing the ball down the field. He has a big arm.
Well,
sometimes I wonder if he's looking at the rush a little bit. I feel like, Penn State could come out, and I like a lot of the kids in the team, and I know a lot of them personally. And I feel like they could come out and be really good. But man, if he's not hitting, they could also flop a little bit. And I wonder if some of these powerhouse programs, if I'm Messiah Mickens, if I'm not looking at them a little bit harder.
Well, I mean, just along those lines, when we had Coach Josh Oswald on the podcast, the one thing I asked him, I was like, we're in a world where if you're not starting by your second or third year in college at quarterback, you're transferring. Why is his former Central York star, Bo Pavula, still at Penn State? And he gave the answer is like, he's built differently than most of these other kids. He's not afraid of competition. But I think you're right. I think this is a big year for Penn State, and especially with the amount of talent in their neck of the woods. Pretty much, like there's always been talent in their neck of the woods, but the degree to which we've talked about ad nauseum, the amount of talent in this 2025 class, that is just astounding that they could pick up and just basically, even without having to fly out to Florida or California to recruit these guys, they can just get guys from their backyard. They need to have a big year this year, or at least a good year this year, to kind of keep those kids feeling like they're coming into a good system, right? Especially with this new Big Ten. So yeah, you're right. Like if I'm a Penn State fan and I'm really excited about Messiah Mickens, I'm still not afraid he's decommitting. But I mean, anytime you see a guy that has your school's logo next to their name on their rivals page, then tweet out, "Thank you for the offer, Kirby Smart." I mean, you're going to get a little nervous. Or even the Miami offer he just picked up. you're never going to be confident about with the amount of money and the weather down in Miami. You're never going to feel great about a guy that's committed getting an offer from Miami. You're just not. Like, nothing's done until it's done, especially when you're recruiting these kids early. And good on these kids for not, not saying, hey, I gave you a pledge when I was a sophomore. I'm just going to shut down my recruitment and not give myself outs in case things change. Because we've talked about a lot. The world of college football college sports stuff can change like that. Penn State could go get a transfer from USC 3 weeks before Messiah is supposed to put pen to paper to commit to Penn State. You got to keep your options open, and this kind of stuff is how you keep these teams on their toes and don't just you haven't signed anything yet. So I agree with you. I think it's a big year. I think that it is a year too where if Drew Allard is kind of good, then they have a chance to just because of the turnover at quarterback with Ohio State and Michigan. There is a chance there, but I think this year is going to be really interesting because of that 2025 class of kids that we have coming up. Or is it 2026 or 2025? I can't even remember. I think it's 2026.
Does Bo Pribula start a game for Penn State this year?
Yes.
I think he will, but I think he'll start at split end or something like that. I mean, I mean, seriously, I mean, you're in a rough spot. I mean, Drew Allard, I don't think has done anything to lose the starting position. But I do believe that Bo Pribula is a more exciting option under center for Penn State. I don't know about production-wise, things like that. I don't know because, again, Drew Allard he's an impressive thrower. He is. I mean, I've seen him make throws, and even under pressure, he's been pretty impressive at times. The way NIL too is going, these offers that are coming in continue to come in for kids who are committed and supposedly, home state kids, and they're committed to Penn State. These offers continue to trickle in too. There's enough cautionary tales out there. I mean, I obviously with NIL, it's a whole different ballgame. And it's why you see these collectors from Penn State begging people to buck up money, to bolster the coffers, if you will, to make sure some of these kids stay with that commitment. But there are cautionary tales too about some of our top recruits year by year who we say, yeah, good, great, taking a chance going to Georgia. I mean, DeAndre Swift was in a 3-headed backfield at Georgia. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go down to Georgia and you're a running back recruit. There's 6 other guys who are just as good as you, if not better. And that's a fact. Now, Penn State, that's not a fact. There aren't 6 guys. So, where is your better situation? I think it's easy. Miami's it's alluring. It is, even though
Oregon too, I think he picked up.
Even though when the Orange Bowl left, it became, it's going up to the whatever Glades
What
there.
is it, like a 30-minute drive from
It's just there's no character in the place.
It's even longer than going to it's even longer than going to Acrisure Stadium from campus.
Well, yeah. Pitt Stadium was great, by the way. It was so old and crappy, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
So you got to weigh everything out, and I don't know. I mean, I think the offer is going to continue to pour in. Certainly for the guy who's not committed like Elias, but I think Messiah is Penn State bound,
and it's a big year for Messiah too. We were saying it's a big year for Penn State. It is a big year for Messiah too, because coming off that year he had last year, where I think we all agree the injuries kind of really just kind of made it hard for him to establish a rhythm. But and we said statistics don't mean everything, and I totally agree with that. But you want to see some more production, just in terms of getting on the field and kind of having those big games against the big teams. He really had the end of his freshman year was outstanding. He built up as that season went, and we didn't get to see it this past year. I think there's room for him to shine as a pass catcher too.
Yeah, at some degree too, Dan. He's going to be facing a better schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not taking a leap and saying, Trinity doesn't play tough football and all, but it's a completely different schedule now.
Yeah.
I mean, Messiah's going to be going up in the Commonwealth. We know it's 9 player or 10 teams deep. So we know it's Central Dauphin. We know it's, and some of these
Valley's
defenses
gonna be
are going to
there.
be completely different. Some of the defense is going to be a lot faster to him. So I think you're right. I think it is a big year. Not that he can't handle it. I think he can absolutely.
No, I
Still-
think it's a safe
No.
bet to say he will handle it, but it's still you still
Yeah.
have to do. You still got to put. I think he'd be the first to tell you that he's got to put because that kid is competitive as can be. I think that was probably part of the issue, right? Is that
Right.
he didn't want to sit out games that he clearly could have because
he should have sat out at least one more.
yeah, but
what
he wanted to play. So I think that
Right.
He was averaging more than 14 yards a carry. He was averaging more than 14 yards per carry through the first 4 games of the season. Then he got banged up.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to put it, Dan. I think it's an important season for Messiah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he would agree to that.
He
Absolutely.
look, he's a great kid and all. You read the message boards. He has his haters, and it's because they're saying, "Oh, he played 2A football. Now he's coming up to where the big boys play in 6A. Now we're going to see.
He's playing 2A football, but he's playing against Steel High, which is not exactly a 1A. That team's better than a lot of 5A, 6A schools. So.
I don't even look at the level really. I look at the athlete and the way he's built and the way he moves and just who he is. And I think the kid's a winner. I do think it's interesting. Obviously, look, you're not a bum if Georgia is offering you guys.
Yeah, I think that's a safe.
Right. That's the point. I mean, we see these. Years ago, McDevitt. How many guys have come out of McDevitt to Power 5 schools, and do we not think their quarterback is good because he's playing 4A?
Yeah.
Do we not think the guy going to Bama is good? The wideout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
they see these kids at the camps. They get there 40 times. They see them go up against the kid. I think everyone knows. And but you're right. That's why this season's so big because I think he has a real chance he's already one of the best prospects in his class. But I think if he has a big year against
to validate,
going against McDevitt, going against Cumberland Valley, going against Central Dauphin, maybe get a Central York or something like that in the playoffs, he'll have a chance to really, I don't even want to say silence because I think it's probably a vocal minority of people who are. Those people just do that anytime there's a small
they
school.
do it no matter what.
Yeah, it's just if there's a player from a small school, they say they haven't played nobody, and then as if there's never been a player from a small school to be a good football player ever.
Go outside and cut your grass. Don't put that memo up on the message board.
Yeah. Don't. I mean, just I'm happy that the message boards make their money, but some of the stuff on there is crazy.
It's staying on Harrisburg. Another interesting thing. Deontay Sheffy commits to Syracuse. Is he a running back? Is he a corner? I mean, I guess we're going to find out probably more definitively this year, I would say.
Well, you talked to Matt Lintel, right? And he kind of said last year they had problems on the line and he really couldn't get going. And we've said it before on the podcast, but Deontay's a kid that I don't want to say he's relying on his line because that's misconstruing what I mean. But he's a kid that needs a little bit of space. He's a guy that operates in open space, right? He's a guy that'll make tacklers miss. But if the front is getting through early, he's not going to break. He's not a tackle breaker or a burst through the middle of the line guy. He's a shifty water bug type running back that I think that he's a night at least in my mind at the next levels, at the very least, he could be a third down running back, like a pass catching running back that's dangerous in the screen game, dangerous, that when you get into open space. But he did have a really good year at corner this year too, and that opened some eyes because I don't know if he played it his freshman year or not. I don't think he did too much, but he had a really good year at corner for a team that needed him. And I imagine he's going to play a lot of that at Harrisburg because not too many kids on the Cougars don't play two ways. So I think he'll have a chance to have a big year there as well.
You said it before too, Dan. 2024 guys, right? You want to, I think when I was coming up, 2001, man, you want to be the running back, but now you want to be the corner. Corner's the more valuable position.
Or a pass catching running back because it almost feels like that skill is harder to find at the next level than a runner. Like you look at You look at teams in college, teams in the NFL. Finding that third down running back is not as easy as when you play Madden and you just throw the ball to Derrick Henry running a screen pass. It's a really tough thing for a lot of these running backs to learn to do. It's something that looks easy on TV, and I just when you see how many incredibly talented running backs can't catch passes out of the backfield, it kind of hammers home how difficult that is and how it's a money making skill. James White uh, pretty much didn't run the ball up the middle of the field his entire career with the New England Patriots. Probably made like $35 million. Should have won a Super Bowl MVP. It's a skill that will get you paid. It's a skill that get you to the next level. And it's not an easy skill to find. I think he has that. But you're right. Corner's another position where if you're good, you've got it made. So
I think his future's at corner. I just don't. I'm not sure how much bigger he's going to get. I don't know. Right now, I think of these guys that we see in college running the ball, and they're built like Messiah Mickens. They're built, 205, 210, can take that first initial contact. Not that Deontay can't, but I just think over the long haul, I think his future, because he's shifty, because he's quick, I can see him playing corner at the next level. I just think that's the right spot for him. Whether or not it's what he wants to do, I don't know, but that makes the most sense to me for him. But he sure is shifty. I mean, I would try to get him the ball. If he's playing corner, I'd still try to get him the ball a handful of times, whether it's in return, punt return, kick return, whatever, or a jet sweep here and there. I would try to get him the rock and see what he can do.
The interesting thing too is where he's going. Fran Brown's coming there from Georgia, and is making some waves with recruiting. So
I mean, you've got Kyle McCord there. So
Kyle McCord apparently is looking good. I saw in preseason stuff. I've always liked Kyle McCord. I think he got a bum rap last year at Ohio State.
Well, you go back and look at the recruiting rankings. He was ranked above the two guys who are going to go 3 and 4 in this draft. So,
yep, Kyle McCord wasn't C.J. Stroud. I think that was his worst sin at Ohio State.
I just think the funny thing about the Kyle McCord situation is they basically replaced Kyle McCord with Kyle McCord. Like, I think Will Howard's a good player, but I think he's pretty much just a repackaged version of Kyle McCord.
He's a little bigger. He probably has a little bit better arm from what I saw just in high school.
But it's largely the same archetype, though, right? Yeah. It's like if Ohio State fans are expecting, to get Joe Burrow out there, I don't think they're going to get what they want there. I think it's just I think they kind of because I wasn't that impressed with Kyle McCord at Ohio State, probably less so than you were, Brian. But I still don't think he is the bane of their existence at that fan base.
The kid went 12-1.
Yeah.
He made some
12-1. They kicked him to the curb
because they lost to Michigan. Because they lost to Michigan. That's it.
He made some big throws down the stretch in the fourth quarter against Notre Dame to beat Notre Dame. Was he CJ Stroud? No, but we see CJ Stroud's amazing. He wasn't bad. I mean, the problem I think for people was he wasn't, a top 5 pick in the draft. How many people are? I mean, I like Will Howard. I tell Epler to this day, I don't know how Central Dauphin beat that Downingtown team with him, because it was like one of the first passes he threw was just just this beautiful ball that turned into a 70 or 80 yard touchdown. If I'm remembering correctly, it was a long play.
Central Dauphin teams were that group of Central Dauphin kids was a tough group back there.
They run on motor oil, dude.
Yeah,
those kids run on motor oil.
Yeah, really good offensive line with Chad Layton and Bryce Tolman and those kids, and a couple tough kids, Timmy Smith.
Yeah, Timmy Smith is one of my favorite kids that I wasn't working here at the time, but saw enough of him covering Commonwealth play.
We ran really hard, and they just kind of kept grinding. But he's good. He could throw it around. That'd be fun to watch. But I never thought I wouldn't say I like. First of all, I like Kyle McCord. He always worked well with us at PennLive, and his dad Derek were good people. But I'd be interested to see what Syracuse has there. So
pretty cool.
Before we switch and really kind of bring this thing to a close, Dan, we talked about it being a big year for Penn State. What about your Pitt Panthers? Like Deion Hayes.
Yeah,
I like Deion. Deion may or may not have kind of put you guys down on the way out to Deion.
I think he kind of regretted that instantly because he quickly went and said that's not really that he probably shouldn't have put it, whatever he said like that. But it's obviously a rebuilding year, but the defense is putting a lot of guys that we saw play in high school a couple of years ago in big positions. Apparently, Braylon Lovelace is going to be, the center of everything there, and that they really like Braylon Lovelace. They really like Cruz Brookins, and they've said Cruz Brookins, I think he won their most improved player this spring. He's probably going to start at safety. And they've said not far behind him was Sean Fitzsimmons, who I think we all liked a bit coming out of high school. I think he redshirted his first year, but I think he's a guy that they think is it's going to be a lot of these kind of younger kids getting the chance to establish themselves on the defense. As for the offense, I think it's going to be throw the ball to Kenny Johnson. Jules Goff's probably going to play instantly for that team. I know that they're also trying to land Michael Scott from Dallas Town too. He was in their final 5 or 6. So it's definitely rebuilding year with their new offense, but at least I get to hear some names called this week with apparently teams really like Devonshire. So, but yeah, I think Kyle McCord's going to put 300 yards on us this year.
How many wins is Pitt going to have this year?
I'd probably put the over under at 4.5.
Yeah, Dan, they've gotten some nice players. Some I thought were nice high school players from Pennsylvania. I'm not sure they really developed them. I know you guys love Charlie Partridge, but I felt like they got some.
Yeah, it was the Florida guy. They developed the Florida guys. The Pittsburgh guys don't really develop.
I feel like you got some good defensive linemen, really good high school outside defensive linemen. A
couple that did develop. Devin Danielson was like a 4-year starter from Thomas Jefferson. But the guys like Nakai Johnson, still on the Panthers. He hasn't really developed quite as much. And Elliot Donald, who they said, I think this is kind of the big year for him that they're hoping he kind of proves that it's not just the name on the back of his jersey that's getting him these chances. But Deion, I think Deion Hayes is an NFL player personally. I think that kid's a really good player. I kind of think picking Colorado over USC if you're going to transfer is an interesting choice. But I probably would have gone with the Trojans if I were him. But he's probably the best development story they've had there from Pittsburgh. But yeah, that's the big criticism up in Western PA with that Pitt program is that they just don't get the kids from the Whippeal that they used to.
All right, well, check that off. We got the draft coming up this weekend. Last week, you guys can go back to the podcast, Dan and Eb talked a lot about different guys in the draft. Obviously, from Central PA. We have Andre White, the linebacker from Harrisburg, who played last year at Georgia Tech, before that Texas A&M. Don't know if he'll get drafted. Maybe late, maybe mid-round to late. But we expect him to get into a camp. There's some other guys there. We did. Obviously, you guys talked last week, and you talked about A.J. Simon, kid that played at Pocono Mountain West, and then Albany, and obviously had a chance, and then tragic news where he apparently maybe had, I guess I saw some reports that he might have had a heart attack, but he has died, and that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So figure we could put that out there and let people know.
Yeah, there's a GoFundMe for set up by his family. 30,000 goals already hit the goal. Apparently from what I understand, the Baltimore Ravens left a pretty sizable donation, a $1,000. Their scouting department donated $1,000, which kind of tells you honestly that there was a good chance that kid was at least going to get a chance with the Ravens, because what that tells me is they brought AJ in for a workout or something, and he must have really left an impression on the group, because you don't see that every often. And then also another top donation on there's Jared Verse donated $2,000, which is really nice because I think they were teammates at University of Albany. So just really sad because literally days away and 25 years old. Just we talked about it last week, man, but kids like that who are on the cusp of getting to the NFL, playing at Bloomsburg and Albany, you have to work your tail off to get like it's not the same for like not everyone's journey is built the same, and to get to that point when you're playing at Pocono Mountain West and then you're playing at Bloomsburg and then you're playing at Albany and you're still getting teams like the Ravens looking at you. He must have been I never watched him play. I think Ep said he never watched him play, but I think that kind of tells you just how much he put into that to kind of get to that point. So it's just awful, and hope just keep him in your thoughts, I guess, when you're enjoying the draft this weekend.
Yeah, terrible. Always you hate to have to come on and share terrible news, and we've had a lot of that around football and Pennsylvania related athletes the last year or two. What is look, that's terrible. It is an exciting time for multiple guys, and Dan will have a list on the website too, coming out. Dan, when will that be up?
It'll be up tomorrow at 5 a.m. So you can. We mentioned almost all of them on the podcast this last week, but I'll kind of go more in depth on them. There's definitely some fun guys. I didn't even mention. I barely mentioned last week. Tyke Smith from Emotep. That's probably going to go in the first 4 or 5 rounds from Georgia. So
we did his commitment video here at PennLive, and went down and I drove around West Philly with him for a day. And Tyke is a quality young man and tough guy there in the secondary.
I did want it before we left because I know Ep said he wasn't as familiar with some of these deep cuts. I know, Brian, you watch a lot of football, so I'm going to quickly quiz you before you go. Do you watch any of Dawson Snyder from Shanksville, Stony Creek?
I know who Dawson Snyder is, but I have not watched him in college.
Yeah, he was on Matt Miller's board from playing at St. Francis. The other ones were Kyle Sheets at Slippery Rock from Conduit.
Didn't he? I think he started his career at Air Force.
Yeah. He people really like him. I saw some that his testing was through the roof athletically, and then just some other smaller guys. There are a couple Temple kids also getting looks like David Martin Robinson and Layden Jordan, but should be interesting because there might be a kid or two that even I missed that gets a look.
David Martin Robinson's always been kind of like just a kind of a different athlete. He's a good athlete, man. I like that kid. I don't know that he necessarily had a full position in high school, but he's a good athlete.
Yeah, and that Marvin Harrison Jr. guy too. It's pretty good.
Who are the Eagles going to take real quick? Who are the Steelers going to take?
Steelers, I heard, was Brian Thomas from LSU, who's the guy that it's either him or I know they really like that center from West Virginia, Zach Frazier, who's basically plays through every injury known to man. Eagles, my guess for the Eagles is just they're going to take someone from Georgia because that feels like all they ever do is just look at the Georgia, just open up the draft tracker, Control F Georgia, and then pick someone.
I saw something today that had your Patriots taking like a skill guy and then trading back into the first round to draft Michael Penix, which is, I think,
that's not happening.
You don't seem excited about that. You seem kind of devastated by that news.
I mean, I know it's pretty much all the reports today are it's going to be May. So for better or worse, going to have an inaccurate gunslinger instead of my guy JJ. So
you don't love Drake May, but you'd be pretty devastated if you ended up with Michael Penix.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I just as long as they pick a quarterback that's not Mac Jones.
My sleeper, Spencer Rattler, man. Played for a really bad Carolina team.
Who's Epps quarterback? Huh? Who's Epps quarterback in this class?
Oh yeah, I'm just wondering to see who Harbaugh takes.
Yeah, I think he's not going to put his money where his mouth is, and I think he's going to pick a wide receiver and not pick JJ.
Well, apparently Adam Schefter on ESPN today, they were pushing like the prop. They had like the Chargers trading Justin and Schefter was like, that's just absolutely ridiculous because of the cap hit they would have to take, and that would never happen. Like,
I love the mock drafts where they have filtered in like 6 different trades, and this is going, and you're just like, be quiet.
Yeah, like why are you projecting trade?
Exactly. Like, come on. Just to be different, and it's like, come on.
Yeah.
I predicted the year, and I did this because I used to go on the sports doctor John Chalesnik show when I was like in 8th grade, and if you guys know anything about the sports doc, he was like ESPN radio overnight for like national, and I would like email him, and he would read my emails on the air. But I actually predicted the Chargers drafting LT, trading back, drafting LT, and taking Breeze in the second round. I predicted that.
I mean, that's probably one of the
Did he
better
send you a
drafts.
T-shirt for that?
I got an autographed photo of him up there. He sent me because of that. The sports doc. I don't know what he's doing now, but I used to like the sports doc.
He's probably a trainer for a team or something.
Well, that was 32 years ago, Brian. So
I used to listen to Artie Spanier too on AM radio.
I was a Tony Bruno guy growing up.
Artie Spanier show. Used to listen to that AM radio in Smoke, South Carolina, because we had no cable television, and my sports center was like every Saturday night at midnight. And that's probably will mean nothing to you, Dan Sostek, but I guarantee you Eric Epler knows about George Michael's Sports Machine. Because when the Sports Machine fired up at like midnight on Saturday on channel 36 out of Charleston, a young Brian Linder was jazzed,
I remember the Sports Machine.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
Only George Michael I know is Freedom 1990 or whatever.
I'm going to send you a YouTube episode of George Michael's Sports Machine.
I want you to sing me Careless Whisperer.
I'm not. You know, I'll note this before we hop off. We had a couple other guys hop in the transfer portal. Local note, Kyle Williams Jr., Harrisburg standout, who was at Temple. He's in the transfer portal now. And Gabriel Arena, the Bishop McDevitt standout offensive lineman, that was at Virginia Tech. He's in the transfer portal. Both of those guys are really good high school players just a year ago. So it'd be interesting to see how they did. And they're both good kids.
Yeah, really good kids.
So it'd be interesting how they do. Look, I think we've gone 41 minutes, and I came out of a meeting. We had nothing, no notes, anything. I think we've talked about some valuable, good stuff here. Epler showed up late. Dan was talking all kind of smack about you not being here.
Epler was not our normal time.
I was not talking smack. You'll listen back and hear that I thought you were a secret agent, and that's whenever you're missing, it's that you're on some covert op for the government, taking out the baddies.
I can't talk about it, Dan, but I'll maybe miss you one day.
You missed this discussion of Swerve Strickland, former Donegal high school football star, winning the AEW World title.
How upset are you that you missed that whole conversation?
I'm about 13-14% upset.
Well, also before we go, I was talking about this with Megan before we left, but I just read an article on Trib Live about the IUP. IUP has a club called the Lettuce Eating Club, and they're in their championships this week. So shout out to the Lettuce Eating Club at IUP.
Is that time?
A timed lettuce eating where they eat a head of lettuce, and that they train to do that, which is genuinely seems like the most miserable experience. I think I would eat anything before eating an entire head of lettuce.
Well, here's the question: did they cut it first?
Is that NIL money?
No, there's a picture of it. They don't cut it up.
What's the top lettuce eater get in NIL money?
It gets all more challenging now because they don't cut it up. It's like just a full head of lettuce. You just have to attack.
Obviously, why would you cut it up?
The most common technique is the hamburger method, just kind of trying to squish it like a hamburger and eat it like that. So maybe in a few years we're going to have the PA high school lettuce eating contest report.
I think we should do that at media days.
Honestly, I would partake in that. I think
I
know a lettuce guy.
It's 2024, and we should all be cognizant of what people do and accepting. But I don't know how I feel if my kid come to me and told me they wanted to be like a professional lettuce eater.
You tell them to at least go hot dog, right? At least get some protein in there.
I don't know what the upside is here. I'm not sure that we're setting ourselves up for the most lucrative future in professional lettuce eating.
I'll forward you guys the story. It's a pretty well reported out story by Bill Shackner from the Trib. So it's shout out to IUP.
Can we stream the lettuce eating contest on PennLive?
Yeah, I think we should. I feel like that would generate a lot of subscribers.
45 minutes in the book. We got a podcast. Tell them how to find you, Dan.
Dan_Sostek.
Yep. Tell them how to find you.
I'm at 3Jacker.
And I'm at Sports by B Linder. Look, we're going to be watching the draft, so we'll be posting when PA kids get drafted this weekend and all kind of training. The big story last year was Will Levis and his girlfriend, Gia Duddy. That's more like a pop culture thing instead of football, but that was the big story last year's draft. So you never know what's going to come out of this draft. Check us out at PennLive.com. We'll have that and so much more. Until next week.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.